You're listening to 89.7 Community Radio, live from the Edith Cowan University in Joondalup. It's currently 37 degrees here in Perth, and tomorrow's forecast is for 41. Monday, 42, and Tuesday, 41. My goodness. Infernal, I think you could call this weather. All right, let's have a listen to what Boris Kinberg had to say about his journey with the Willy DeVille. Shall we start off back there in 1985 when you first, 23 years you've been with Willy, Boris. It's a hell of a long time. It's a hell of a long time. Does it feel that long for you?
Well, now that it's been a few years since Willy passed, I think on it, and it seems like I've blinked. Because in those 24 years, it's been pretty jam-packed, and there was never a dull moment.
No, I'm sure there wasn't a dull moment. And, after Willy passed away, I guess there was a big hole as far as, the chunk of time that you spent touring and rehearsing and being with those guys. How did you fill that? Have you?
Well, I still work with Kenny Margolis, who was the keyboard and accordion player with Mink DeVille even before I joined the band.
That's right.
So we still work together in a Zydeco Cajun band where we specialize in music from Louisiana and rockabilly and that kind of thing. So I still work with him.
That's the Upsouth Twisters?
Right.
Okay, good.
Which was formerly Lucky Seven, but we had changed our name some time ago.
Uh-huh.
And the other group that I work with is sort of like a world beat jazz group that uses influences from the Balkans, India, South America, has a big horn section. All these people, a lot of the people in it have a vast jazz background, and the two guys who front the band are very well versed in all kinds of ethnic music, and they utilize instruments from all over the world, and the name of that band is Tribeca-stan.
Oh, right. Well, that sounds fascinating, actually.
If when you get a moment, if you go online, like on YouTube, and look up Tribeca-stan, you'll get a flavor of the kind of music we do.
Okay. Is that T-R-I or T-R-Y?
It's T-R-I-B-E-C. Mm-hmm. Tribeca, B-E-C-A-S-T-A-N. A-S-T-A-N. Okay. All right. We'll check that out. So do you tour with these guys, or is this... No, we just play locally here in New York.
Uh-huh.
And there's a gig coming up, which is a huge, once a year, a big Balkan music festival, which is held in Brooklyn at a huge catering hall where bands from all over the city and even some bands from Eastern Europe come over to play this. It's like 80 bands in 3 days. It's a huge festival.
Okay, so World Music Festival.
Right, it's called Golden Fest.
Uh-huh. We have a similar one that's about to happen here in Australia called WOME Adelaide, and that's a very big... yearly event as well. Same sort of alternate stuff, but yeah, all sorts of stuff, yeah. Yeah, so getting back to 1985, wasn't it, with Sport and Life? Were you employed, Kenny turned you on to, Louis Cordelese turned you on to the band, didn't he?
That's correct. And I actually came in when Willy had put out Where Angels Fear to Tread.
1983.
That's the genesis of my introduction to him, because he had a big hit with the Demasiado Corazon and he needed a percussionist. And what happened was Louis told me about the audition. I heard the music. I said I've heard about this guy, but then I listened to a whole record. I can't believe I've never seen him.
Uh-huh.
And I went to the audition, and fortunately for me, I was the only percussionist who showed up. There were a number of drummers and bass players who heard about the gig and came out and auditioned. And I thought I was going to be up against some very serious players, but I think it was destined.
Well,
that I played with Willy because I was the only guy who showed up, and I knew the music really well.
Were you hired as a touring band member?
Yes, I was.
That's what you were hired as, right? Specifically,
right?
Yeah. So there was no question of what was going to happen when he made his next album, studio album or anything. That never entered into the equation at that stage.
No, for me, it was like a dream realized, because I'd been like really champing at the bit to go abroad and to go on tour in a proper way.
Oh, fantastic!
And the wish was fulfilled. course, I had no idea who I would be working with. That just went beyond my wildest expectations.
Well, were you playing in a band, or were you doing session work at that stage, in that early stage?
I was playing with a lot of singers-songwriters, and at that period, computer generated music was kind of in its infancy, so I was able to get a lot of work doing demos and things for like dance music and playing with a couple of different bands. Mostly a lot of singer-songwriter type things. Nothing steady. It was a lot of one-off situations.
Yeah. Well, you were quoted as saying that you were meant to be in this band.
Absolutely.
Did that feeling or that vibe ever change or tire you?
No, because I always looked forward to going out with Willie, because it was every trip was different. every trip was different. I just wish that I had, I was on Sporting Life. I just wish that there was more of an opportunity to have played on some of his records, but that's okay, because I would rather have been on the road with him than just be a session guy and do a couple of songs and stay in New York.
Yeah.
So I was really happy to go on the road with him at every opportunity when the situation presented itself.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's great. So, do you have a favorite tour, or tell us about Willie. You know him. You knew this guy. Give us a glimpse of what Willie was like.
When I first met him at the audition, he came into the rehearsal space, and he sat down on the couch and he stayed for about 10 minutes and he left. So I had no idea. That was my first meeting with him. I didn't even talk to him, and then I found out I'd gotten a gig and I was in the band. But it was basically on stage that I got to know him, because in the beginning, sometimes we wouldn't see him till showtime. So there wasn't really a lot of
interaction,
a lot of hanging out. So it was like, when we rehearsed. But one thing I really noticed about and really loved about him was that he never micromanaged the band. He expected the band to know the material, but he never went to each player and specifically ask them to play something,
a certain
I don't
way
like this
or
part.
whatever.
Can you do this? Like, if it felt good and if it felt good while he was singing it, he was good with it. He was never really a guy who was like had his fingers in everybody's parts, so to speak.
He wasn't really a control freak.
Not really. I think only when it came to there were a couple of things he was controlling about early on. It was particularly what we wore on stage. That was pretty funny. He was really a fashion policeman. Of course, you could see that. You look at his pictures. I mean, he absolutely was totally unique in his garb and even off stage wardrobe. Absolutely unique.
Yeah, absolutely unique.
He had a brilliant sense of style. I mean, there was a period where he would line each of the guys up before we went on stage, and he'd walk up and down like a colonel.
Sergeant Major.
Troops. Yeah. And he would look at me and he'd say, Boris, man, lose the tie. Stuff like that.
Well, you managed to have the tie on in the DVD Live in the Lowlands, and it's funny you should mention that, because that was the first DVD that I saw. And I said to my husband, because he's a percussionist and he was in a band when he was a kid. He's not now. He just loves music, and he's got the drums and the percussions and all set up at home. And we play along with you, when we're watching these DVDs. But the first thing I said to Kingsley, I think that's the first time I've ever seen a drummer in a tie.
Yeah, at that point, he really loosened up. He really loosened up on the fashion standards. So I went against type.
You seized the opportunity.
It's always been a fantasy of mine to wear like a beautiful suit and tie and play in a jazz quintet with Miles Davis.
Oh.
That's my big fantasy. To be very cool. So I was sort of working up to that level.
The touring in the bus, for long periods of time, did it ever get boring, or was it always fun?
Occasionally it would get tedious, especially, there'd be incredibly long hauls where we would really have to basically roll off the bus, have an hour, and go to sound check. There was one instance where we were on our way to a festival, and we were really running late, and had we been late, we would have lost. There was some money at stake back then, and we basically pulled up ran out on stage and started playing just in the nick of time. And Willie was known for that. You know, you'd look at your watch and you'd say, "Where's Willie?" And a minute before we were supposed to go on, he'd show up. So it was never a dull moment.
Well, at least he showed up.
Yes, exactly.
I guess the condition he was in was another surprise, was it, each time?
Yeah.
Well, when you were in between tours, did you just wait for a phone call to say, you know, come on, we're, you know, rehearsing again? Were there long periods that you had to fill with other things?
Only when he was like in the midst of preparing to do another record. But when a record was released, as we were on the road, we would hear that, you guys are coming back again in like 3 months. So there was a period there where he was pretty busy. So in the downtime, I was happy to get the rest.
Okay.
You know, the only long period of time was when he was doing a new record. That would take some time because, of course, you'd have to record the record. Then there would be press involved. Then we would go. Then we would find out about the road trip, and then go into the rehearsal studio and start prepping the new material.
Right. So how did that happen if he didn't always turn up to rehearsals?
After a certain point, with the same guy showing up, we would listen to the track, and somebody would like kind of sing along while the band played. So we did a lot of work on our own, and when Willie came, he'd call the tune, we'd play it, he'd sing and say, "Okay, that sounds pretty good. Can you do this?" So we did a lot of sort of like a lot of prep work for him.
Okay,
so
yeah.
He wasn't there for a lot of the like initial rehearsal.
Yeah, the fleshing out of it. Yeah.
Right. We would flesh out some of these tunes. Maybe we would rearrange them. You know, maybe we would try something. If he liked it, he'd keep it. If he didn't, we'd go back to the original.
So what would he hand you? Would he hand you just a rough CD of him singing the song and strumming his guitar, or?
Oh no, we would hear we'd hear the finished product.
Oh, I see. From the album. If you weren't on it, yeah, I get it.
Right.
I get it. Yeah,
right.
I get it. I understand.
And he would use a couple of the guys from the road band, depending on what he wanted, because he blended very well with Dave Keys. So Dave did a lot of, I don't know how much playing he did, but I know he sang a lot. He did a lot of background, some of Willie's later albums.
From 85 to 92, that was the next album you worked on. There were many session musos on Backstreets of Desire. Were you involved with a lot of the songs on that one?
No, I wasn't.
You weren't?
I wasn't involved in. Unfortunately, I wasn't involved in that record. That's a record he did in. I think he did it in Los Angeles, right? I'm not sure.
You are not. You didn't play on that at all?
No, I didn't.
Oh, right, because I had you down there. I don't know where I got that from. I'll cross that out now. Make sure I don't make that mistake again when I'm saying it.
No, the only original studio album that I worked on was Sporting Life.
Oh, I see. All right.
But I think about all the succeeding records, and I really wished I'd been a part of it. But I'm more than content to have been on the Live in the Lowlands DVD and Live at the Metropole in Berlin, which was done in 2002.
Yes.
So this is something that I can show my daughter.
Well, that's right. Also, you were on the Montreux one in 94.
Right.
And the live album in 93, the DVD. It's fantastic.
That alone is, for me, is just great.
Yes.
And it was nice to get a gold disc from Spain. So.
Oh yeah, that's a plus. So Boris, did you have a favourite place that you loved to go in Europe? And did you have a favourite tour and a favourite place, venue-wise?
I really enjoyed the south of France and Spain.
Why?
Spain to me seemed the most exotic country we went to. It's just the landscape was totally different from the rest of Europe, from the rest of Western Europe, and the fans there were really they were great. And this is not to disparage the fans from his core fans. I think are still in Holland and Germany.
Yeah.
That's his hardcore audience. They love him there. But as far as traveling and taking the scenic route, those to me were the two most picturesque places.
Do you have some good memories from there?
Absolutely.
Do you have any interesting stories from there that you can think of?
Just that, playing, we did some gigs in bull rings.
Oh, why not?
Yeah, and that was tremendous. And I remember the food. We did a gig in not sure, I forget where, at a bull ring, and the food was prepared by 5 or 6 elderly Spanish ladies who could be your grandmother. You know, it was out of a movie. It was totally fantastic.
Oh, fantastic. And paella and all the peasant foods, I suppose
right.
you had.
Yeah,
Yeah,
some guy cooking paella in a big skillet on an open fire.
Oh, man, that sounds fun.
It's the kind of a thing you see in a travel folder.
Yes, yeah, exactly. What do you have any memories of a worst tour?
The worst. I'd have to say the last outing that we had with Willie, because he was really, you could see that something was really wrong with him. I mean, physically, he was really very sick at that point.
Did he know how sick he was? Did he tell you guys how sick he was?
Well, I don't think even he knew. I mean, we knew that he had, problems. He had some internal problems that he thought he could be able to take care of, and then it turned out to be something infinitely more serious when he got back. But there was just something not right, and I think it was like he was really struggling. Yeah. And of course, after that, in 2009, this was 2008, and then we found out what was really his problem. That's when just turned really tragic. And really quickly, didn't it? Yes. Because I saw him in 2008. He was very, very thin, and he did seem a little out of sorts. Yeah, I mean, we were with him, 24/7. I'd see him on the bus and stuff, and I said, this is not the guy I know from like live from 2005. Yeah. Like the life force was being sucked out of him. Right. And I think, I'm not sure, but I think it was a really, progressive thing with him. Was he quite often solitary? Well, only as solitary as you can be on a bus. His wife was with him, but no, he would come out and and hang out on the bus when he was feeling okay. He would come out and hang out and talk with everybody. Mm-hmm. But during the day, most of the times we just did not see him. We did not run into him. There wasn't a lot of socializing. Yeah. It was usually like during the day we would go to sound check, and he would come in maybe half hour before we were supposed to play, or he'd go to sound check, go back to the hotel, and then would come back maybe 20 minutes before showtime. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I suppose you all needed your own space too, didn't you? When you've been on a bus for traveling across the country. Oh yeah, thankfully we were all getting single rooms. You're absolutely right, because it was playing and eating together and that kind of thing. But it was still there was still a good amount of time to get some privacy. Yeah. Part one of an interview that I had with Boris Kinberg at his apartment in New York. Well, you're going to have to come back next week to hear the remainder of